All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're tackling a big one from the task list, B6, automatic versus socially mediated contingencies. And let me tell you, this isn't just some academic concept. It's the absolute bedrock of what we do. It's all about figuring out the real why behind a behavior. Get this right, and it's a total game changer for the exam and in your practice.
So why should you really care about this? Well, for starters, it's a huge chunk of your exam, a whopping 14% of the concepts and principles domain. I mean, think about that. Mastering this one area gets you a massive step closer to passing. But honestly, the exam is just the beginning. This is the key that unlocks effective interventions with your clients. It's that important.
Yeah, exactly. This goes way beyond just acing a multiple choice question. I want you to think of yourself as a detective. Every single day, with every client, you're on a case. And the central mystery you're trying to solve is why? Why is this behavior happening? This distinction we're about to break down, well, it's your number one clue. It's the starting point for the whole investigation.
Right. This is the heart of the matter. You can't even begin to think about a plan or an intervention until you've put on that detective hat and followed the trail of reinforcement. Where is it coming from? That's the question. Is it what we'd call an inside job, or is it an outside job? Because honestly, the answer to that one question changes absolutely everything you do next.
Okay, so in this investigation, there are really only two prime suspects, two possible sources for that reinforcement. Let's get them in the interrogation room and see what they're all about.
Okay, suspect number one. This is our outside job. We call it a socially mediated contingency. And all that means is that the consequence, the good stuff or the bad stuff, is delivered by another person. Someone else has to be involved. The classic example, right? A kid asks for a cookie and mom gives him the cookie. Mom is the mediator, the go-between. Without her, the cookie doesn't appear.
All right, now for suspect number two, the inside job. This is what we call an automatic contingency. And here, the behavior itself is the reward. It directly produces the consequence. There's no middleman needed. Think about it. You have an itch, you scratch it. Ah, that relief. That feeling is a direct result of the scratching. You didn't need to ask anyone for help. The action itself solved the problem.
So, we've got our two suspects, the outside job and the inside job. Now it's time to look at some actual evidence, some real case files. Let's see if we can spot them out in the wild.
Okay, let's break down this lineup. You see the pattern here, right? In the first case, the kid says, "Toy, please." And what happens? A parent gives them the toy. The parent had to be there. Same with the tantrum, the teacher removes the task. Again, another person is essential. But now look at the other two. You feel cold, so you put on a sweater. Boom, instant warmth. No one else needed. You're bored, you tap a pencil. You get that cool rhythmic sound. The behavior itself created the consequence. See the difference? This all points to a single, incredibly powerful tool we can use.
Yep, all this evidence, all these case files, they all lead us to one simple but incredibly powerful question. This is it. This is the one thing you need to crack the case every single time. No exceptions.
And here it is. This is the litmus test, the question you have to burn into your brain. Is another person required to deliver the consequence? That's it. If the answer is yes, you're dealing with a socially mediated contingency. If the answer is no, it's automatic. This is your golden rule. Seriously, write it on a sticky note, put it on your monitor, whatever you have to do. Never forget this question. And this chart just lays it out perfectly, side by side. On the left, socially mediated. The consequence is delivered by another person. That's our outside job. On the right, automatic. The consequence is produced directly by the behavior, our inside job. It really is that simple. It all boils down to who or what is delivering that reinforcement.
Okay, let's talk exam strategy because you know they're going to try to trick you. First, watch out for the presence trap. They'll write a scenario where a client is hand-flapping in a crowded room. Your brain might jump to social, but wait, the mere presence of other people means nothing. The question is, did someone do something because of the behavior? If not, it's not socially mediated. Then there's the escape trap. Be careful here. Covering your ears to escape a loud noise, that's automatic. But screaming until a teacher removes your worksheet, that's socially mediated because the teacher's action was required. And finally, the key word, sensory. We often link it to automatic, and it usually is. But don't get lazy. It's a clue, not a definitive answer. Always apply the golden rule question.
All right, so our detective work is done. We've identified the culprit. We know if it's an inside job or an outside job. But so what? Why did we go through all that trouble? Well, this is where it gets really important because this determines exactly what we do next. This three-step process, right here, this is everything. This is the foundation of good, effective ABA. You identify the contingency, which tells you the function, which then tells you how to design your intervention. If you mess up step one, if you get the contingency wrong, your entire plan is built on sand. It's not just going to be ineffective. You could argue it's unethical to keep running an intervention that's based on a completely wrong assumption about why the behavior is happening. Let's make this super concrete. Picture a client who is hand flapping, and let's say it's maintained by automatic reinforcement. They love the visual stimulation it creates. Now, what if your intervention is planned ignoring? Is that going to work? Absolutely not. It's doomed to fail. Why? Because you aren't the source of reinforcement. The behavior is reinforcing itself. Your presence or absence is totally irrelevant. A good intervention would have to target that sensory consequence directly, maybe by giving them something else to look at that's just as cool but more appropriate. Okay, now let's flip the script. Imagine a child who screams, and every time they scream, mom or dad rushes over. That's a classic socially mediated attention-maintained behavior. The parent's response is the reinforcement. So now, does planned ignoring make sense? You bet it does. Now, an intervention that changes how the parents respond, like ignoring the screaming, and instead giving tons of attention for a quiet voice, is going to be super effective. Why? Because you're targeting the actual source of the reinforcement.
And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? Get the function wrong, and you'll get the intervention wrong. It's a simple but powerful truth. When you misidentify that contingency, you end up targeting the wrong thing. And that means you're wasting precious time. You're spinning your wheels with interventions that don't work. And most importantly, you're failing to get the best outcomes for your clients. We can't let that happen.
All right, let's wrap this up with the high points, the key takeaways you need to remember. First, the source of the consequence is everything. Follow the reinforcement. Second, your non-negotiable tool is that one question: is another person required? Third, do not fall for those exam traps, especially just because other people are in the room. And finally, always remember that identifying the contingency correctly isn't just a random step. It is the critical foundation for your entire intervention plan.
So there you have it. That's our deep dive into this absolutely critical distinction. Think of it this way. You now have the master key to unlock the why behind any behavior you see. The next time you're faced with a clinical mystery, you know exactly where to start. So get out there, use that litmus test, and start solving some cases.